and welcome back to Health Kick with Dr. K. And I've got my co-host Pastor C with me again today.
Hi, Dr. K.
Hello. And so today we're talking about the importance of sleep.
Yeah.
So last day we had talked about stress.
Yes.
Right? And we've talked in the past, even further back, about nutrition.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about sleep. And those I always harp on being like the three pillars of health. If you haven't got those three things on lock, there's something off with your health for sure. Maybe not right now, but this is something that we'd be looking at to the future as well. So I'm going to throw it over to Pastor C first and ask her, what happens when you don't sleep well? You personally.
I'm grumpy.
Okay.
I'm grumpy.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm confused. Mm-hmm. I feel tired, like through the day, no energy. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I just don't want to do anything that I don't enjoy when I'm overly tired.
Yes. Yeah. So your mood's affected.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is like the confusion.
Yes.
Right? So your focus isn't there.
Yeah.
Which is huge. And that makes perfect sense based on, what I already had an idea of like the importance of sleep. Everyone's like, yeah, you should sleep, you'll feel better, you'll have better energy, this, that. But it truly does, like stress, affect every single aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify what sleep is, because I was trying to find the exact definition and everyone had a bit of a different one. But anyway, the National Health Institute states that sleep is a reduced consciousness with physiological and brain activity changes. So during the day when we're awake, our brain is just firing like randomly. There's not like at night when everything is happening in a synchronous, nice, smooth pattern. Mm-hmm. Right? And those changes are part of a whole chemical cascade where you have like your hormones and your immune function, and all of those things are active. So that's in the non-REM sleep. So you've got REM and non-REM sleep. REM sleep is that rapid eye movement where you're dreaming. That's what that is. Whereas the rest of it is that deep sleep that you're going to. And there's changes in brain activity and brain waves and all of that. I don't want to get too much into that part. But the reason that we are harping on the fact that sleep is so important is because of your ability to heal, your ability to create memories, to grow, to focus, to have good reaction time, to have hormonal health, to have your immune function feeling tip-top, right? So just what you were saying about the confusion piece, it's so true, because your brain at night is making memories, right? The short and long-term memories that it needs to be able to focus into the next day.
Yes. Okay. So when you talk about that, how much sleep do we need then?
So there's so many sleep charts, like for parents especially, to follow for like their age groups of their kids. So adults like yourself and I would be more so the 7 to 8 hour range.
Okay.
And that would be sufficient. And you have to bear in mind too, interruptions that might happen. So let's say you're a person that wakes up to go pee all the time, or you have kids that wake you up. That factors into the length of time that you're asleep, right? You might be asleep or in bed 10 to 6, but then you have a little person waking you up, or you have to wake up to pee or whatever. So that really does cut down into your actual sleep time and the sleep cycles that you're able to go through. So let me just ask you, when you do have a lack of sleep, what has gotten in the way of you actually getting sleep?
Well, what has gotten in the way is my bathroom time. I wake up during the night at least minimum every 2 hours.
Okay, so there you go. So imagine that, right? You're going through a sleep cycle, and then your body's like, oh no, I need to wake up now.
Yeah.
Right? So for that, my small tip for Pastor C here, just on the whim, I have had some people that happens to, and it does happen, it's fair enough, but what I find that really helps is reducing how much water intake you have that 3 hours before bed.
Oh, 3 hours, okay.
Some people it's a little bit longer, some
Yeah.
people it's into the 4
Yeah.
range. I don't like to push it more than 4 hours though, because
Okay.
then you start to get into like a little bit of dehydration.
Dehydration.
But that can help.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's important.
Yes. Now, the interesting thing that I was looking at when I was looking into sleep and all the tentacles that it's got covering our lives and our function is that even just 1 hour a night less for a week can increase your overall body inflammatory markers by 30 to 42%.
Wow.
Right? So that is huge. Like that's just like mind-blowing. I don't even know, that's huge. And that's only an hour less. So let's say you and I, we need 8 hours a night, but then we get, 6.5 for the next 7 days. Then at the end of that 7 days, your inflammation is sky high compared to what it was. And then you put like life stress in there, and then you have eating foods that are inflammatory for you into that mix, and you've got yourself like a perfect storm, right?
So when the body gets inflamed, what happens when you have sleep deprivation and you're inflamed? What are some of the things that we would notice?
So everyone's a little bit different about how their body feels the inflammation. So I think that has a lot to do with genes. I think that has a lot to do with previous nutrition status and like how long the sleep deprivation has happened. There's a lot of variables, but let's just say some people, if they have an injury, like I have one person that they have an elbow injury, and if they eat rice, it gets worse, like the pain is worse. But then you factor in the lack of sleep and all those things, and that makes it even worse than it could have been, right? Some people it's headaches, others it could be digestive upset.
Okay.
Digestive upset is pretty common though, because your gut is very susceptible to that lack of sleep and to that stress level. So the kind of like term that's thrown around is leaky gut.
Yeah.
And that's not really like a true medical term, but it does describe kind of what's going on. Like things in your gut are getting into your bloodstream and into your body that should not be there.
Okay.
And so your body's responding to that because it's like, well, this is a foreign thing that's floating around in here. And that's where I definitely see, at least in my practice, way more food sensitivities starting, very bizarre allergies, like all of a sudden somebody's allergic to, something they weren't before,
So that's how much sleep affect your inflammatory issues?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it can, as I say, it can impact each and every aspect of your life.
Wow. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If you lack sleep, and as you said, if you lose 1 hour, it affects us, and it affects our inflammatory system, our bodies. Can we gain back sleep the moment we lose it?
So yes, you can get yourself on track. And if you get that consistent sleep again, then your inflammatory markers are going to go down.
Okay.
Provided, you have the other two, which is stress and nutrition, to help you with that.
Okay.
Right? However, you're kind of bringing up a good point, which I wrote down some of the myths that we tell ourselves.
Okay.
And the myths are, if I take a nap, I'll be fine. Right? We're always like, I just don't worry about it. Just take a nap.
I think that's me. Yeah.
Right? And so the problem with that is that, yes, you might feel a little bit better as far as like sleep time. However, naps don't actually help you going through that same cyclical thing that being sleep overnight does. So you're not necessarily, unless the nap is like extremely long, like some people take 3-hour naps, fair enough. That's a different story. But if you're doing like a 20-minute power nap kind of thing, then you're getting the rest aspect.
Okay.
But you're not necessarily getting all of the hormonal increases like growth hormone and the immune system boost and all of those benefits.
Okay.
The other thing with napping is that it can mess with your overall circadian rhythm.
Yes.
You know, so if you're trying to have a regular schedule, or you go to bed at 10, wake up at 6, but then you're napping at like 2 p.m., by 10 you're not necessarily tired anymore. And the more frequently you can get into that cycle of having a very consistent sleep and wake time, then again you're maximizing, one, the cues from the environment, which is like darkness is happening, you know, you're with sunrise, sunset, and of course having that block of sleep all together at once. The other thing is that we tell ourselves is, oh, I'm used to it now, right? You're getting 5 hours a night, oh,
Yeah.
I'm used to it.
That's your normal.
Yes, yeah, and the thing is that the body's always keeping track, right? You cannot, that's not something, oh, I'm just gonna get used to and be okay forever on, right? I think you can definitely get away with a lack of sleep for a short amount of time. You know, like people that are breastfeeding, or they have young kids, or they're sick, or there's a certain reason that you're awake for that amount of time. I do think that you can recover from that and you can be totally fine. However, prolonged periods, you know, like I definitely have people in my practice that they've had insomnia for decades, right? And I do think that kind of recovery takes a while. It's not just something that you bounce back from with a few naps here and there or some increase in sleep. What was the other thing? Oh, and working overnights. So working overnights gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
And I know you yourself have worked shifts for a very long time. Working overnights itself is okay. And that's if you're consistent with it. Because you can actually switch your usual circadian rhythm from being, you know, day awake and night asleep.
Okay.
You can actually flip it. And you can go through all of the same benefits and all that good stuff. What really is a challenge for people is when there's shifts. So that 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or
1 week on, 1 week off.
That's right.
all the rotation.
That's right. Or even the folks that have like 2 nights and 2 days, or 2
Yes,
days, 2 nights, whichever.
that's right.
That is extremely hard on the system because you really can't regulate yourself within that 2-day window, and then all of a sudden you're just in a huge deficit. So
What could you do to help with that if you have to work 2 weeks, 2 days on and 2 days, 2 days days and 2 days night? What could a person do to help with their sleep pattern?
So I would really take advantage of light and darkness. So if you know that you're going to have to work a night, like an overnight shift, and then switch over to a day, get as much sleep as you possibly can.
Okay.
And then make sure that whatever environment that you're in, that if you have to be awake, turn on all the overhead lights, make sure you've got bright light exposure so that your brain is like, okay, now's the time to be awake. And then as soon as it's time to start shutting down, close down all the lights, be in a dark, quiet place, like really make that contrast so that your body is getting ready.
Okay.
The other thing too is you may have to take advantage of naps at that point, and that's okay, right? If that's what you have to do, then at least you're getting some sort of rest and sleep. As I say, it's not the same quality that you're going to get if it's in a block of time. However, it's better than nothing at all too. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? If you find that you're taking the naps and you're feeling more tired, because sometimes that happens, because you take the nap and your body thinks that it has gotten sleep or it should get more sleep, and it's not getting that amount of sleep, how could you balance that off? I'm thinking maybe not try to take the naps, but you need it because you're not able to function.
Yeah. I would say that, in that case, I mean, you would try not to nap as much as possible and try to get your whole block of sleep at a certain time. And the main thing with that, I would say, is like don't ignore fatigue signals.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like if it's 8 p.m., for example, and you've like, the kids are asleep and like everything's fine, go to bed. Just go to bed.
Yeah.
It's 8 p.m., fair enough. You might wake up at 4, but do not ignore the fatigue signals, because what happens is you just keep pushing through it, and then all of a sudden you get your like second wind, and then you actually are trying to go to bed at 10. No way. You're just fully awake at that point. So I would say try to work with your body as much as possible. I mean, yes, there are circumstances where you might not be able to go to bed that early, fair enough, but do take advantage of those fatigue signals when they kick in, even if it's not the most opportune time, because you can always shift it back a little bit, like the next day, for example. But generally, once you get a consistent sleep schedule, you want to go to bed and wake up within an hour of that, even on the weekends, kind of like a no matter what situation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of leads into what we do when what are we doing within our day that interferes with sleep? So ignoring fatigue signal is certainly one of them, right? Yeah. And the funny thing is, you know, like a lot of people push through that because they're like, oh, I have so much to get done, you know, this, that. But the funny thing is, if we just went to sleep, we'd actually be way more productive.
And that's something, because we tend to not realize that we're not as productive as we're. Yeah. And especially women, because we multitask. So because we multitask, we feel there's so much things to get done that we push through it. Yeah. And then we're not hitting the target as we should. Whatever we're trying to accomplish, we're not hitting it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just what you were saying about the focus piece. Imagine you can't barely focus, but you're trying to get done all these tasks. I mean, everyone does it, so fair enough. But if we just took a moment and said, hey, you know what, I'm gonna sleep, and then tomorrow I'm gonna come back at this like double time, it would be so much more productive, right? The other thing is shift work. So, I mean, I really hope for everyone's sake that places like plants and, you know, things like that, they stop that. It is so incredibly hard on the system.
Yes.
Alcohol is another one that interferes with sleep. Yeah. So generally, it's hard to say again, because the liver and how the liver processes alcohol is a huge factor in how alcohol affects your sleep and how long it stays in your system. So there's no like real concrete advice on that. Like you have to kind of trial and error on your own to figure out how much time it takes for you to not impact your sleep. So I have some people that they can have a wine after dinner and their sleep is still fine. Whereas I have other people that I'm like, well, I guess you better start drinking at 11 a.m. because you need to be cut off by 1 so that you can actually get some quality sleep. So everyone's a bit different because it has to do with how your liver processes things. Sleeping too little or too much, right? So you have the contrast of people that are getting very minimal sleep, and then you have other people that are getting, adults that are getting 10, 11, 12 hours of sleep a day, and that might be tied into a mental health condition, right? The only thing is that too much and too little are both negative on the system, because your natural circadian rhythm that is trying to push through all of that gets bogged down with both of those.
Okay. So can I ask a question? We say about approximately 8 hours of sleep, but say some people, they need a little bit more. Yeah. And they will function, and some people will need a little bit less than the 8. But if you know what the numbers are, or you have an idea, then that's your norm. Would that be your norm?
Yes. Yeah, okay. So absolutely. Everything is 100% based on you. Yeah. So if you know for yourself, like, I can get 7 hours and be amazing. Yeah. Great. Okay. And then, there's other people that are adults that need that 9 hours, and that's what they need for them to feel their absolute best. Okay. Great. So that's, as I say, the guidelines and the timelines of all these things are just that. You need to find exactly what works for you. And you'll know, like, when you start to wake up feeling refreshed, that's when you know, hey, this is my number. And I cannot tell you how many people don't wake up refreshed.
Yes.
They wake up and they're like dragging, they're sluggish. You know, even morning people, right? They're just like, no, I can't get myself up. So definitely figuring out what exactly is your sleep number is important. And then for students, like I was saying, right? If you're studying for something, the whole all-nighters thing, no, definitely not, right? Better to just get a good night's sleep and start studying again in the morning.
Okay.
Because during that sleep, you are storing the memories. You're incorporating the information that you've learned. You are memorizing, essentially, so that when you wake up the next day, it's going to feel a lot like you've already, okay, I already know this, and you just have to like review, for example. But staying up all night and being fatigued and then trying to go to an exam, again, that's your focus, your concentration, your memory are all going to be shot after that.
Does the lack of sleep affects your memory over a long period?
So it can affect your short and long-term memory.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can start, and I mean, whether that's fully to do with sleep or fully to do, like, or also to do with, you know, development of Alzheimer's or dementia, or that gets a little muddy as you get further down the road. But generally, yes, if you can forget, you know, the amount of times I ask people what they ate for lunch or for dinner yesterday, and they have no idea, right? So yes, there are things that you will forget in the short term, and then there are things that you might forget in the long term. You know, like what you did last weekend. You know, same thing with that. People are like, I don't know. I know myself. I'm like, I have to look at my calendar.
Yeah.
I probably had fun, but I don't remember what it was. So it absolutely can affect that for sure.
Okay. So it's very important then to really pay attention to sleep then.
Definitely, yeah. Making it a priority.
Yeah.
And I tell people, you know, maybe set a timer on your phone, like around, if you want to be in bed at, 10 to 2 is the optimal time to be asleep. So if you want to be, you know, maximizing your hormone potential essentially, and you want to be asleep by 10, most people need an hour to start organizing themselves, like getting into a routine, turning down the lights, like all of those things. Yeah. The other two things that often people are doing throughout the day is caffeine. And that's not just coffee, right? That's your black teas, that's even your green teas, that's your chocolate, your Cokes.
Oh my.
Right? Those all have caffeine in them. And depending on how sensitive you are, even a green tea can be very stimulating.
Wow.
And then contrary to popular belief, nicotine is actually another one that is a stimulant. I know people say that they smoke and they feel relaxed, but it is actually a stimulant. So bear that in mind. People that are smoking later into the day, it could actually affect their sleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can exercise affect your sleep?
For sure, definitely.
Can it be a good thing or a bad thing?
So it depends on the time of day.
Yeah.
You know, like some people feel amazing, they work out in the morning, they're like revved up, ready to go, which is generally what we want from our exercise. You want to feel awake, you want to feel energized. Whereas if you're working out too late in the day, you can actually wake yourself up and then be too revved up to go to sleep.
Okay.
So it is just to keep that in mind, that if you are working out, you know, even 2 hours before bed is cutting it a little bit close.
Okay.
Especially if it's like a high intensity workout. If you're doing something more relaxational like yoga, maybe just yoga or going for a walk that you're not, you know, your heart's not pounding, let's say, then fair enough, those are generally okay. But yeah. But it definitely can help with sleep, is that, you know, you're getting mental stimulation all day, but maybe if you work at a computer, you're not getting that physical exhaustion as well. So an exercise can definitely help with that side. I just wanted to touch on some medical conditions that can affect sleep as well. And sometimes, you know, one causes the other or vice versa. However, anxiety and depression are absolutely huge. And I found a stat here from CAMH that says that 15 to 20% of people diagnosed with insomnia will develop major depression.
Wow.
Right? So if you started with insomnia, like just that chronic, all the time, cannot sleep, 20% of those people go on to develop major depression, and that's huge because that can feel like something that you can't get out of, and and that is just from
lack of sleep.
Lack of sleep,
nothing else. No other
factors,
issues. Yeah.
So it is, again, very, very important. So anxiety, depression are a part of that. Thyroid issues are another one. So if you're sleeping more than usual and you're not necessarily depressed, but you're just exhausted constantly, or if you're revved up all the time, like you're just wired constantly, it's worth getting your thyroid levels checked.
Okay.
What else? The restless leg is another fairly common one that keeps people awake. So some people describe it as like they've got ants crawling on their legs, or that they just are constantly fidgeting in their body. Those are things that very easily can be managed, at least with naturopathic medicine. So don't be suffering with this stuff, right? Because of how important sleep is.
What about high blood pressure? Does it affect?
High blood pressure can. Yeah,
Wow.
it certainly can, because some people get headaches, and then that discomfort keeps them awake. The interesting thing about high blood pressure and sleep is that when you're sleeping, you're actually repairing your heart and blood vessels. So sleep is so important for people that have any sort of heart condition or high blood pressure, because it's helping to heal those tissues. So on the flip side of that, if you do have like a very much like a lack of sleep, that's where heart disease becomes a concern. Kidney disease as well, because kidneys have very, very tiny blood vessels, and so they can be easily damaged over time. So they do need those regenerative times as well.
Can I ask a question? What does it start sleep apnea, and what is sleep apnea?
Okay, yeah, so that's a good one. And that one is very hugely impacting sleep quality, to the point where if you're diagnosed with sleep apnea and you don't use your CPAP machine at night, you can actually get a fine for driving. Like you can get your license taken away.
Wow.
Like that's how serious it is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like it's very serious to have sleep apnea and not treat it. And so sleep apnea, what it is when you're asleep and you stop breathing. So you stop breathing, that means that your brain all of a sudden has a decrease of oxygen, all your organs have a decrease in oxygen. And that's where they're snoring, and then all of a sudden they might be totally quiet and then just start gasping for air and then keep snoring again. That's generally what their partners are experiencing. Or sometimes people wake themselves up because they're kind of like coughing and sputtering.
Or catching their breath.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So it can be very, very serious, because that lack of oxygen impacts your sleep quality, and then from there, you're just constantly exhausted. Yeah. So I'm getting the signal that we're like almost time to wrap up. So I don't know, I hope I conveyed how important sleep is. Because, yeah, honestly, it's just one of those things where you just cannot function optimally, and there's no way to like cheat the system. You really do need that sleep. And I guess I'll finish up with talking about a few things that you can do. So if you are in that boat where sleep is, elusive for you, make a routine.
Okay.
Make a routine, absolutely make a routine. Commit yourself to going to sleep and waking up at the same time every day. Every single day, even on the weekends. And try that, right? Try that. And your body will start getting into that.
Okay.
Work on the environmental cues. So, when it's light outside, look at outside, get exposed to that bright light. And then at night, make sure that everything is dark, that you're shutting down the lights. that you're minimizing your blue light exposure so that either you've got the blue light glasses or you do the change on your computer to do like dark mode or whatever. Set a reminder on your phone, so like don't get distracted and forget that it's like almost bedtime. Set that reminder, start slowing things down. Maybe try a meditation or just like, you know, quiet music before bed. Yoga, as they say, is okay because you're doing that deep breathing, getting your body relaxed. Make sure that you're minimizing your caffeine and nicotine exposure throughout the day. And be active as much as you can in whatever way that you can. And then making sure that your room is dark, quiet, you know, good quality sleep is what we're looking for. And yeah, so the 3 pillars of health: sleep, stress management, and the nutrition that you put into your body.
Okay, great.
Alrighty guys, well thank you for joining us for our Health Tips with Dr. K. And